Hello, everybody. Welcome to Right Size Your Life, the virtual series produced by the Southern California News Group in conjunction with the Bay Area News Group. We're here to help you simplify, organize, and beautify your home to live your best life now. I'm Sam Dunn. I'm the senior editor for premium content here at the Southern California News Group. And I want to say thank you to our Reader Rewards subscribers for supporting our virtual programs and for supporting our newspapers in general. By the way, if you are a Reader Rewards subscriber attending today, you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift card for Amazon. Just don't go buying more stuff you don't need. Joan Wood was our winner last month. Congratulations, Joan. We hope you're enjoying your gift card. And listen, if you are not a subscriber yet, why not? Please become a stakeholder in local journalism, folks. It really makes a difference. If you're in Southern California, go to scng.com/subscribe to find your local paper. And if you're in the Bay Area, go to the bayareanewsgroup.com and please join us as a regular reader. Before we get going, I need to tell you a few things. Take notes. No, kidding. If you have questions, please use the Q&A feature on your Zoom toolbar that's there on the bottom of your screen. Questions are going to be addressed at the end of the presentation, so please don't get frustrated. We're going to get to those questions. And certainly, if you want to make comments, use the chat feature found on your Zoom toolbar as well. But if you put questions in the chat, we often don't see them. So please be sure to put your questions in the Q&A section. And don't worry, this session is going to be videotaped and a link is going to be sent to you so you can share it or just revisit some of your favorite moments. You're not going to miss a thing. It's recorded. You're going to get it. Don't worry. It's also posted, it's also posted on YouTube and at scng.com/virtual events. And that's where you can find both of the past shows that Marnie has done, as well as see what's coming up in our other virtual programs. Now, speaking of Marnie, it's my pleasure to introduce our show's host, Marnie Jameson. Marnie's a syndicated columnist for our news group and read in papers nationwide. She's also a popular speaker and author of several books, including Right Size Today to Create Your Best Life Tomorrow and Downsizing the Family Home. Marnie, welcome.
Hello, Sam. So nice to be back.
It's so great to have you. Listen, I'm going to get off and let you get straight to it. I know people are eager to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. All right. Well, gosh, it's been such a pleasure to be part of this series. And this is part 3 of 3. It's going to be a little sad to say goodbye, but I hope I get to come back. And for those of you who have seen the other two shows and webinars, this is going to just cap off our 3-part series, which I hope you've enjoyed as much as I have. And this topic, what to do with everything, it's huge, right? Is just going to put a bow on everything we've talked about so far. So just to provide a little context, and for those of you who maybe didn't hear the first 2 series, we started this series about downsizing, talking about how to clear out a parent's home or a loved one's home, something we almost all have to deal with at some point in life. And also, by extension, how to keep our own places under control so we don't leave a complete avalanche to those who are coming after us. And the next talk, we talked about right-sizing your life, which is really figuring out where in the world to live and in what kind of house and what kind of dwelling to really create the best of the rest of your life. So those have been kind of where we've come from. And like today's talk, in those sessions, I drew from my books that I've written on various facets of downsizing or right-sizing or blending homes, which collectively, I guess, has made me this unwitting. I didn't raise my hand to become an expert on this subject, but I managed to become a stuff management expert. And just to kind of give you the foundation from what we're building on today, I'm going to breeze through, Julie, if you could show me the next slide, the few books and kind of how they built up to us being here today on this subject of legacy leaving. So it started in 2016 when I published Downsizing the Family Home, chronicling the journey that I took when I emptied out my parents' home of nearly 50 years and moving mountains of memories and figuring out what to do, with the goal of selling the home, the family home, to finance my parents' long-term care. And many of those lessons applied then to my life. And in my book, I think to those readers who really want to live better with less and not leave a mess behind. And then my own life was going through a complete remodeling. I was getting divorced and living alone and staging houses and moving a lot and getting remarried, which was the happy part, and merging households. And I came to the unhappy realization, though, I might have loved my husband, his stuff not so much. And when one house and another house merge, you have to get one house out of it. So you each have to lose half a house, and that's kind of painful. So how do you do that? So I wrote that because it was cheaper than therapy, and so we wrote downsizing the blended home, and then and Right Size Today, which I talked about last month. It was again how to lighten up so you can go and live anywhere you want. I think a lot of people are really tied down by their stuff and by the size of their house. And they look up and go, gosh, I'd really like to have a cabin in the mountains or a lake house, but oh, the attic is so full, or I have so much stuff, or, I don't know what to do with everything. I'm just stuck here. And that is just no way to go through life. So we talked about how to free yourself from those sorts of shackles last time. And then next slide, Julie. While any right-minded person would say, what more could anybody possibly have to say on this subject? A publisher approached me and asked me about a new book idea and whether I would be interested in writing it. And he said, really, I want the ultimate downsizing guide, kind of an estate planning guide, something that really would talk about what to do with everything when you die. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about dying. I'm not planning to die. And he says, well, the fact of the matter is, so I had to think about that, which I didn't want to think about, and acknowledge this fact is in fact true, that we are all, sorry to bring this up, not going to be here for a lot longer than we are here. So that means if you don't deal with your stuff, somebody else is going to have to. And don't you want to be in control? So if not you, who is the question? That think about at the end of the day when you have your stuff, your affairs are in order, but what about your stuff? And what's all going to happen to it? Is it going to end up in a pawn shop where someone is just just selling it off, or they don't know, your kids don't know what's valuable, and somebody else gets to pocket the asset. It's a whole lot better for everyone if you make a plan and you know what you have and you have a strategy for how it should convey. So that's what we're talking about today, and that's what we talk about in downsides, or in what to do with everything you own to leave the legacy you want. Because I think if most of us really look ahead, next slide, this is what we want. We want to bestow a blessing, not a burden. At the end of the day, we want to, everything in order, not to leave total chaos for our children or our heirs or whoever else is going to be coming and mopping up after us. And we can make a huge difference with a little forethought and a little planning. So what to do with everything is a logical extension of downsizing, merging homes, right sizing, all of that. All of these books have this theme that you can lighten up and let go and live more beautifully now, and leave the legacy you want. And I also like to not talk about downsizing, that sounds depressing, but right sizing, just really, really having everything you need and no more for every stage and phase of your life. And that includes the life beyond. So all of that's my wind up. I think that when you get to the idea of what to do with everything, you think about, oh, well, this involves trust lawyers and estate planners and financial managers. And yeah, it does. And I'm none of those. So I'm just a journalist who knows how to ask questions. And if it doesn't make sense to me, I assume it won't make sense to you. So I drill down and I talk to these people and I make them make themselves clear. And then I try to convey the information in a way that makes sense. So that's what the book is about. And that's what we're doing today. So with that, I think we've been over, how to distill down what you keep and what you let go. We've talked in other sessions about need, use, love. If you don't love it or use it or need it, don't keep it. It's got to have check one of those boxes. And painful as this is, and I know somebody's already had a question about this, the kids don't want your stuff. Take a deep breath. I know it's really hard to believe they don't want your fantastic old furniture, but they don't. And somebody says, well, what if they make a mistake? What if they really and truly want the bedroom furniture or the headboard? I know they're going to change their mind someday. That is lazy. That is just you being lazy and not facing the fact that you need to move this out and get rid of it and not burden them with it. So here's the deal. You ask your kids, do you want any of this? They may say yes for a couple of things. Congratulations. If they say no, believe them. Let that sink in. Believe them. If they regret it 10 years down the line, isn't your job as a parent to teach your kids to learn from their mistakes? Case closed. So don't pretend they don't know what they're talking about. If they say they don't want it, believe them. I was speaking at a conference in Baltimore a couple months ago, and a woman came up to me afterwards. She was, I would guess, in her 70s. And she said that she had her parents' furniture in a storage unit, and she had been paying for that storage unit all these years. I was about to cry. She felt so beholden to her parents, and she felt that was so important to them. Do not save things for your kids, and do not give them your guilt trips. All right, that's Marnie Tough Love. Moving on. So think about, what is it going to look like when that day comes? And I don't know when that day comes. How long is a piece of string? I don't know. We might walk out the door and get hit by a meteor tomorrow. We've all been through the COVID pandemic. You don't know. You don't know when your time is coming. But what's it look like? What are your kids going to do? What kind of a mess are you going to leave? So do you know, is someone just going to pull up a dumpster to your house? Here's the most important thing we're going to talk about today is your stuff can make a meaningful difference. All of it can make a meaningful difference, but it won't unless you make a plan. So now, with all due respect to the financial planners and wealth managers out there, dealing with the money is the easy part. If you have assets in cash or stocks or retirement accounts or any of that, trust funds, anything that's a transactional paper thing, that's the easy part. You have a will, you say 50% goes here, 50%, whatever. The hard part is this: the kids are dealing with this stuff, like what to do with it. What about the piano or the family jewels or the boat or your designer purses or first edition books, your coin or stamp collection? A lot of things you have that no one appreciates in your family but you. And only you know what you have and whether it's worth anything. I'm going to talk about value here in just a second. But you need to organize it and figure out where it's going to go, or it could end up like this. So what if you do have a valuable piece of art? Does anybody know? Does anybody know what to do with it? So it's important to have a plan so we can get things sorted out. So, and I'm going to give you a couple really great examples here in just a minute, but the next painful thing, I only have maybe 3 painful things today. 1, you're going to die. 2 is the kids don't want your stuff. And 3, next slide, it's probably not worth what you think it is. Ouch. We all like to think that our things are worth more than they are. And they might be. They might be worth more than you think, but most things are not worth what some of the lore in the family would have you believe. The Hummel collection, the Yadro. I have men that are very attached to their tools. They spent, many, many thousands of dollars on, that are in a shed, that people today don't need the tools that they used to. It's hard. So you have to get real about value and not say, oh, I'm going to leave so-and-so the clock on the mantle and that'll pay for the kids' tuition. That will do everyone a disservice. Find out what it's worth. So this is an example. This clock did sit on the mantle of my parents' piano in our house growing up. I had no idea what it was worth. I had to come in and sweep through my parents' house in a week, and I was flying by the seat of my pants. And I knew this was a clock that my dad had from his family, but I did not know if it was worth a lot or a little. Now, fortunately, and don't do this, because I'm a columnist, I was able to call up an expert at Antiques Roadshow, a fellow named Gary Small, who is a fine art and old clocks expert. And I showed him this picture and I asked him what the heck I should sell this for, because I didn't want to give away the farm, but I also wanted to be reasonable. So here's what I learned. Yes, this is an antique. Let's talk about antiques and let's talk about valuable antiques. There's a world of difference. When something is over 100 years old, as this clock was, it's an antique. Congratulations. There are a lot of things over 100 years old. In order for it to be a valuable antique, it needs to be in good condition. This one, someone had lost the key. I might have stolen it because it was always going off in the middle of the night, driving everybody nuts. So who knows what the key was? So it wasn't in great condition. It had to be find a new key and restored. It has to be rare. Turns out this was a mass-produced clock in the 20s, or in its time, in the early 1920s. It was mass-produced and it was common, not rare. So it wasn't in good condition, wasn't rare. And the third category, to be a valuable antique, it has to be desirable. There has to be a market for it. It can be in great condition. It could be over 100 years old. It can be rare and nobody wants it. So there's no market. It's not valuable. Okay. So those are the criteria you need to be thinking about when you think you have a quote valuable antique. You want to get it appraised, and you want it and you can also look on a Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or eBay, depending on what it is you're selling, and look for like items and what they sold for. This clock, I sold it for $150 to somebody who owned an antique store and was going to refurbish it and probably sell it for $250. Big deal. Okay. But I didn't know, but I found out. So this is the time you take to find out whether or not you have an asset to convey and whether it's worth anything, or whether you should just sell it out right now and put the cash in an account for your kids or grandkids. Because here's the other dirty little secret. The kids really want your cash. They don't want your stuff. So it's much better if you can sell it and put the money in an account for them in a scholarship fund, and then it really can help pay for somebody's tuition. Now, there are exceptions. Here's one. Next. There are people who specialize in all kinds of valuable antiques and unvaluable antiques. And you may not know. So this fellow, meet Kurt Amann. He works in Nokomis, Illinois. He owns Amann Auctions, and he specializes in old farm equipment. Now, I really couldn't believe this. I'm a city girl. I'm like, what in the heck? Why would anybody want an antique tractor? What do I know, right? Well, his daughter thought the same, not his daughter, one of his clients' daughters thought the same thing. He told me the story. This is not the piece, but of a woman who was a banker in Chicago, and her dad had this old farm, and it was crammed full of old farm equipment, and he died. And she'd asked him at one point, well, what do I do with all your tractors? And he said, oh, you'll probably just sell them for scrap metal. Just didn't really give her a good answer, which was a mistake almost. And some guy walked by and said, hey, I'll give you $150,000 for the whole shooting match. She thought, well, that would be good. Get it off my hands. But she called this fellow first. And what she had in storage and all of these tractors was several $100,000 worth of tractor equipment that he sold at auction. This little gem, this 1911 Colonial Marshall tractor, I hope you're sitting down, sold at auction last year for $565,000. $565,000. That would cover a few college tuitions. So sometimes your parents or you might have something that is worth something and is valuable. And if you do, let everyone know and find the expert. There are experts in all kinds of things, in rock and roll memorabilia, in fine art, in designer clothes, in automobiles, folks who really have a niche. And if you have a collection of something, they can appraise it and help you know where to sell it if you want it, if your family wants to sell it, or you want to sell it, or you want to arrange to have it sold upon your death and have the asset convey. So take some time. If you have a bunch of stuff, sort it out, get rid of what you don't need, use love, sell what you can. Same with your jewelry. I had it's a personal thing, but I had a diamond ring from my last marriage, and what am I going to do with it? I'm not wearing it. I have two daughters. They're like, it was awkward. Like, who's going to get it? I did what you should do with it. I sold it. I got the money and I put it in the account that will go to them after I die. That's how that asset should convey. So take some of the pain away and some of the burden off your kids and take care of stuff right now. In addition to liquidating and putting cash aside for your heirs, you can also donate it for a write-off. That cleans your house and you get to take the benefit right away. What you also want to do, because stuff gets people get very possessive about things and you want to avoid an argument, is have all the discussions now about, the diamond is going to go to so-and-so and the Corvette is going to go to so-and-so. Make it clear. And so you can avoid some arguments. Next slide. This is my favorite slide because it really sums up everything we're going to talk about, everything we are talking about in today's talk. What if, because you can, so I say, what if? I like to think about a magic funnel and you dump all your stuff. You can see the screwdrivers and telephones and cameras and everything. Everything you own gets dumped into this funnel and gets liquidated into cash. And then that's not where it stops. You can turn that cash into meaning. So at the end of the day, when you're no longer here, wouldn't it be nice to know that you still had some, I want to say control, but you still had something was happening that you left behind that is making a difference. You're paying for your grandchildren's tuition or college, or you're helping the world in some way. So there's the meaning part. So I'm going to talk about a couple that we meet in What to Do with Everything You Own, Virginia and Ed Foltz. Virginia and Ed live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They're in their late 70s. They met as teenagers. They were both school teachers, high school teachers. They got married out of high school, and they took a backpacking trip through Europe, and they toured a lot of museums on a dime. They were staying in youth hostels, but they just fell in love with art, and they had a great time. And they came back and they continued to teach high school, and they never had children, and which is the key to being rich, I've decided. So I'm a blended family of 5. So that tells you where I stand. But they opted to leave everything they own to the Albuquerque Museum Foundation. So 100% of everything they own. And they have a lot of art. They're not wealthy. They were high school teachers, but they loved art and they collected a lot. Some might be valuable. Some they just like and it's not that valuable. But regardless, they have a plan that when they die, they have an executor who will sell every single thing they own, from their cars to their pizza cutters. And they're going to take all the cash, just the cash, and that cash is going to go to the Albuquerque Museum Foundation, 100%. So they know what's going to happen. And if the museum comes in and looks through their art and wants anything, great, they can take it and have it. They're not going to take it personally if the museum wants none of their art. That's fine. They just want the museum to benefit because they love the art so much. And they have such peace and happiness knowing where everything's going to go when they die. And I just love their story. So that's one way to think about the magic funnel. Another way to think about it is you don't have to be wealthy. Because when I started writing this book, I heard people say, oh, you have to be wealthy to leave a meaningful legacy. Not so. I love this other story. It's also in my book, of a Missouri school teacher. She was single, taught school in the Ozarks, and Never had any children either. Again, the secret to I'm kidding, success. Um, but all she had was her house, and it was only worth about $65,000. But she left it to the Ozarks Community Foundation. Now, every community in the United States has a community foundation. There are over 700 of them in our country. So if you live in a community and you want to give back to it, that's a really great place to start. And so she went to her community foundation and she said, when I die, I want you to have my house and I want you to use it to provide scholarships for children, because she was a teacher and education was everything to her. And after she passed, they got the house and they sold it and they grew the 65,000 into $100,000 by good management. And then they set up a community fund. And that community fund now spins off two $1,000 scholarships a year into perpetuity, changing the trajectory of students' lives. So long after this teacher is gone, she is still educating students. And it only took one donation and some planning. So don't think you don't have enough. So how can you translate your belongings into a meaningful legacy? Next. One is start out by asking what matters. And of course, if you have children or grandchildren, not always. Sometimes you're like, the heck with them, let them figure it out themselves and make their own way, right? I'm going to donate or give everything to the animal shelter. But if there are people, they're first. And all the state attorneys will tell you that 95% of people give everything or almost everything to people that they care about in their lives. And then also think about places and causes. So these are places that have been meaningful to you. Next slide. Think about what else is it your church or temple? Do you care about research? Is it the school you attended that made a difference in your life, or your kids attended a community where you grew up, or where they gave back to you and put you on your feet and got you on your way? As the environment, what is it? And how can you give just a piece back to that community or the church or for animals or whatever your passion is? And that one way to look at it is to do what a lot of financial planners and estate planners call the 5% rule. It's a way to look at it. And how you maybe want to give 95% to your family or 90% and take 10% and let that make a meaningful difference and put that toward a cause, like maybe scholarships for children in underserved communities, or anything that you say, helping people who have vision problems, whatever your issue is. Maybe you want to help the next generation not have those problems. One really cool rule I found was a way that you can give a gift that you've always given forever. So let's say, and there are lots of examples like this in the book, but this is a really easy one. Let's say that every year you give $500 to let's say a homeless shelter, and you want to continue giving that gift, but after you die, how's that going to happen? If you take that same amount and multiply it by 20, so say that's $10,000, and you write in your will, we'll talk about that in a second, you write that you want to leave $10,000 to this homeless shelter, and you, as a planned gift through your charity or your estate plan, or directly as a gift to the charity, they will manage properly. That $10,000 will throw off $500 a year, your same donation, into perpetuity. So long after you're gone, your $500 is still going to help this shelter based on the $10,000 gift. So there's so many ways, if you give it some planning, that you will be able to give back and leave a long and meaningful legacy that outlives you, and also is a really great example for your heirs to see how you did things, so they can use you as a model and do the same thing going forward. So you know what comes next, right? Next is, it's not going to happen, next slide, Julie, unless you put it in writing, right? So in the book, it talks about, if you don't have a will, you can you have wills on, you things online. There's certain times that the wills are not going to be valid. So you need to know what you're doing. You have to print it out. You have to sign it, and different states have different rules. Or you can create a trust, which isn't as daunting as one would think. And you put money in a trust, and you can have a lot of control over who gets what and under what circumstances. So I think that's really, really important. And again, when do you do it? Now, because I plan to live a long time. I mean, my mom lived to 94, my dad lived to 90. I've got some pretty good genes, and I think I have a few good years left. So, but I've done this. I put this all in writing, and you never know when you're going to get hit by that meteor. So, it gives everyone peace of mind. You know where everything's going to hit the corner pocket. There's not going to be a lot of squabbling when this day is done. And I am in a blended family, right? So I've got his three, my two, and I don't want them to squabble and fight. So it's important to make it really clear, and you'll be doing yourself and everyone in your family a big favor. So I'm about to take questions, but there's one, I love this saying from Maya Angelou: if you're going to leave a legacy, make a mark on the world that can't be erased. Think about that, and think about what you can do to leave a mark on the world that can't be erased. I think that's really worth aspiring to. So, the idea I'd like to leave you with then is right sizing and legacy leave. It's a lifestyle. You need to think about whatever stage you're in and dealing with how you're going to deal with everything you own. It's an ongoing process, but it could have ramifications for years to come. I welcome your questions. I'm excited to hear them, and I hope I didn't talk too fast, but you can replay the YouTube and slow it down. But I had a lot to cover, and I hope it was helpful.
You were wonderful as always, Marnie, and we do have a lot of questions. I'm going to begin with one you kind of dealt with at the top of the program, but I think it's worth reiterating. Ginny Fayette asks, if my kids say they are not interested in a family item now, but later as they get older, they wish someone had something from their grandparents, how do you save items for when the kids may want them, say 10 years later? Again, you covered it, but once again,
yeah, I don't think I can hit this point hard enough. It is, people, they put things in storage, they pay for the real estate that it takes up, and you could buy that back so many times. The kids would rather have the money, sell it, put the money aside for them, and say, sorry, I don't have grandma's headboard anymore, but I think you're going to benefit from a headboard. That take the money and buy your own headboard, and you can say, this came from grandma, because you convert into, and I just think you have to believe your kids, and don't, it is, you are the problem. When you say, oh, but my kid, that's your way of delaying and denying and deferring what you need to face. It's emotional laziness. Sorry, but it's really easy to say, oh, the kids really are going to want it someday, so I'll hang on to it. That's emotional laziness. So ask them. They say they don't want it. Say, well, I'm going to sell it, and we'll try to keep the money for you for another day.
I love what you said when they give their answer, believe them. I think that's the bottom line, right? Kimberly Hagan of Livermore wants to know, at what point are items simply trash? I'm talking early 1900s porcelain figurines and other items that just don't seem donation worthy. And just what makes something worth donating? Well, we'll get to that. I think you've addressed some of that, but and also, big question, how do I assuage the guilt of tossing my grandmother's quote unquote treasures?
The guilt trip is real. You can take a picture of it and put it in a scrapbook and say, my grandma loved these, and write a little note to generations to come. They don't want the tchotchke. You can look, if there's something like I did come across, and don't get excited, because I don't even know what I want to do with it. But my mom had some Hummels, which are not worth anything, but she had one that was not painted. And apparently when they first started coming out with Hummels, they made them pure white, and they were unpainted. And a collector pointed it out to me, because I had it on the table for 10 cents or something. And they said, this is an original Hummel that's never been painted. You might want to do something else with this.
Yeah.
So if you think you have something that's valuable, look on eBay. See if you think so. See if any of it's going for anything. And if it's really not, I honestly have never heard of anyone had this is not grammatically correct, but givers up remorseness. Nobody has ever given something up and then told me they really were sorry they did. It's cleansing. You just let it go. And if you have a little pang like, oh, maybe I should have kept that, you're like, well, too late now. And you'll get over it very quickly.
Que sera,
It's just
sera.
butter. Things are just not worth anymore what they once meant to our parents. When it was precious, you got a set of sheets for your wedding and you saved them for years and used them forever. Now we can go to Target and get a fresh set of sheets. We don't want grandma's linens. So just move on, people.
That's amen. Well, to the question of finding value, there are a lot of questions about that. Kathy Gonzalez asks, how do you determine if an appraiser is reputable? For instance, coins and silver.
Yeah, they have to be a
And also,
certified.
how do you find experts? How do you find these certified experts?
Yeah. So you want to look up certified appraisers in your area, and then you go into the certified appraisers and find out what their specialty is. But they must be certified appraisers. And one of the things that really does separate, because there might be one who specializes in fine rugs. That's one thing, right? Or clocks, or fine antiques, or fine art, jewelry. A certified appraiser in a valid, a reputable appraiser will never try to buy what it is they're appraising. So a disreputable one will be shady and say, oh, I think this is probably worth, $1,000 when it's really worth 5,000. And, I can take it off your hands right now. That should never happen. That is an ethical line. So they should never be trying to sell it for you to a friend. It should be completely agnostic. They need to come in, give you a price, and not be involved with any kind of sale.
And Jill Chin had a question about reputable buyers for jewelry and wedding rings. I think what you're talking about there is particularly apropos, right?
Yeah, you need I actually have one here in Florida that I use. It's a jewelry concierge, which sounds really highfalutin, but it's not. But she will come to your house. It's very discreet. She'll bring her scale and she will take your gold jewelry that you're not going to use for anything else and buy it from you right there. And she's also, pointed me to people who can remake jewelry for me into pieces that I will wear that maybe were too dated, but I still want to remember my mother or the diamond that she got from my father, but I don't like the setting, that kind of thing. But yes, you look for reputable jewelers, and you can compare. Like you can take one. It's a little shady business. Like if you go to a pawn shop and you go in
Yeah.
and you have an engagement ring, they're going to call their buddy down the street because they know you're headed over there. And they said, I told her it was this much, but if you tell her it's this much, then we can split the difference. There's a bunch of shenanigans. So you have to be a little vigilant, but good people are out there.
Excellent. Well, speaking of jewelry, we have a great comment actually, just not a question, but comment from Linda Uribe, who says, I had quite a bit of costume jewelry from my mother, so I found a picture of her wearing a piece of the jewelry. I made a small frame with the pieces and placed her picture in the frame, then gave it to my children and grandchildren. Linda, that's a great
It's
little.
beautiful. Yeah, I've done that with fishing flies. My dad liked fishing, and I have a picture of him fishing in one of his favorite flies, but I could throw away all the tackle, right?
Speaking of specialty experts, Irene Chin wanted to know the name again of the gentleman that buys farm equipment. Can you repeat that?
Oh, Kurt Aumann, Aumann, in Nokomis, Illinois, and his company's called Aumann Auction.
Really good. And this is an interesting question from Martha Soliday. She wants to know, and this is particularly interesting because it gets into the idea of Jurassic technology. Any ideas about where to sell quality stereo equipment, such as Martinez and Bose?
Ooh,
That's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, because some of that, it might be very expensive when you first buy it, but becomes obsolete.
Quickly,
Yeah,
yeah, it quickly loses value. Again, we have all these online marketplaces. You go on and look for that same exact item, not for what it's selling for, but what it's sold for. You look up sold price of a very similar item, and the market will tell you pretty quickly what it's worth.
right. I have, we have one more question, a series of questions actually about how to watch the, excuse me, previous episodes, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I have a personal question, Marnie. So,
Okay.
excuse me, I have a husband who has a collection of t-shirts. I mean, some of these t-shirts go back 30 years. I don't even want to know how many he has. They're in the garage. Every time I broach the subject of what should we do with these t-shirts, he says, how can you even think about getting rid of my t-shirts? What about all your books? How do you recommend horse trading in terms of getting rid of each other's stuff? Do you have any advice there?
Well, I'm losing that battle. My husband has a bunch of record albums. I'm like, what? We don't even have a turntable. What are we doing? Oh, this, these are valuable.
Um,
Some items you just have to put a box on around it and stick it away for another day. But you might at least ask him what his plan is. Like, if anybody wants some, how would you want something that meant so much to him? How
yeah,
would he want, I don't know if you have children, but would you want
yes,
them to dispose of it or hand it down, or who's the lucky recipient of these t-shirts?
yeah.
And if I'm sure that there is a place, people love maybe these albums that I don't love, but
Maybe they
they're
could go together, the t-shirts and the albums.
they're probably rock and roll concert t-shirts and albums. We could have a package deal, then we
Yeah,
could really make
exactly.
some money. Yeah.
Getting a
Anyway.
lot of great suggestions on making quilts out of him, which is a great suggestion. Thank you. Um, we have, one more question before we get to the very end. Any suggestions about leaving a house to more than one person? Isn't that a will question?
Well, what you would do is you get a valuation on the house and you decide who's going to do the appraisal, or you get three appraisals and take the average. And then let's say it's worth $300,000 and there are three children and one person gets the house, but the other two each get $100,000 from the estate. So they have to make it even. So the one person can get the value, the whole house, but not without making it even to the other two, if everyone's in agreement. That's part of the key, but you do have to make them all whole. So either that person who gets the whole house buys them out, or if there are other assets in the trust or the estate, those other two get more than the one who got the house to make it even. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Thank you,
But
Marty.
there are those sorts of discussions in the book because there are a lot of permutations to this will and family stuff.
And we will have another slide at the very end with the books, I believe, right, Julie? Julie. We keep talking about Julie, and she's our production manager, who's the Oz behind the curtain.
Julie,
Julie. Um, anyway, yeah, yeah, there we go. Thank you, Julie.
it's the
Um,
next one.
it's the next one, hun.
There you
Thank you.
go.
Um, one more time again, Combrio, we have the question, any recommendations on how to start the process of eliminating personal items? Is there one question you start to ask yourself?
Well, I talked about this in my other sessions, but where to start is one thing. I like to say start in a place that's big and it's not too emotional, and you make progress because it's easier to do in the garage and the laundry room instead of your jewelry box or your photos. So start in a place that's big and impersonal, and you're going to find this momentum and you're going to see how nice it feels and how easy it is to get rid of things. And when you take them to, I just sent stuff to a place where agencies refer people who have fallen upon tragedy and hard times, and they're just getting on their feet, but they need to furnish their places. I was just interviewed a woman who was living in her car with her three children, including an infant.
Oh,
And she got kicked out of her mom's house and she's, really having a tough time. She got a job, but got on her feet, but and through Section 8 got an apartment and she needed to furnish it. And she was at this place that does nothing but help people furnish their houses. And I feel very good donating things to these places. So you start feeling good about donating because you're helping people. Plus, your garage is staying out. So you start in a place that is big and makes a difference, and then do your linen closet, your personal closet, and you just keep chipping away. And the questions are the same: do I need it? Do I use it? Do I love it? And let that be your guide. Not, but it was expensive, but so and so gave it to me, but I might need it someday. Those are not good reasons.
Marnie, thank you as ever. I think we have a lot of questions asking where can we find the previous episodes and rewatch today's episode. Again, we have a question. Can these sessions be shown at women's religious groups? Sure. If you just want to pull up YouTube or pull up scng.com/virtual events, you can find all of the past episodes. And how long will the sessions be available online? For a long time. I don't want to say in perpetuity because I don't know how the magic of the interwebs work, but for a long time, they're up there. You can find them. Again, Mark.
I have one other suggestion for them
Yeah,
before they go. I do have a blog that I post every single week, the columns that some of you in Northern California get to see every week, but the Southern California papers haven't caught on yet and aren't running my column every week. But I post it on my blog 2 weeks after it runs in print. It posts on my website, so you can read. I just wrote about a wonderful group of people that make quilts that give from your scraps of stuff. So the ways you can repurpose your things, how to downsize. Sometimes it's about decorating and other fun things in life. But anyway, you're welcome. It's free. It's at marniejameson.com. Sign up for the blog, and you'll hear from me every Monday.
Marnie, I thank you so much. You are a source of profound information, but also inspiration. So thank you. And I'm sorry, that's really all the time we have. We hope you've enjoyed, folks, this Right Sizer Life with Marnie. And again, please look for her columns in our newspapers or track her down on her website. And Marnie, we hope to lure you back in the future, but meanwhile, you can register for all of our upcoming programs and catch up on others you might have missed by going to, again, scng.com/virtual events. If you've got any thoughts from today you want to share or you have additional questions, please email us at events@scng.com, or you can email Marnie directly at marnie@marniejameson.com. Hey, and a final reminder, if you are not a subscriber but want to get in on all of the entertainment and information we offer, give us a call here in Southern California at 877-469-6133. Again, thanks for your support, and everybody take care and get rid of that stuff. Bye now.